At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized, so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 350 plus programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
The 2026 Minnesota Golf Show is swinging into the Minneapolis Convention Center February 13th through 15th, and we want your business on the green. With thousands of passionate golfers roaming the floor, this is your chance to get your brand in front of this quality demographic with a vendor booth or larger sponsorship. And this year's ambassador, NFL Hall of Famer and Viking legend John Randall. So yeah, it's kind of a big deal. Want in? Don't wait for your invitation to land in the fairway. Call Bernie Lauer at 651-632-6646 or email blaur@hbi.com before the best spots are gone.
Join me, John Randall, at the North American Banking Company Minnesota Golf Show, February 13th through the 15th. It's your chance to try out the newest clubs and equipment from the biggest names in golf. Improve your game with free lessons and clinics from PGA pros. And when you're done, relax at the 19th Hole Lounge with your favorite post-round beverage.
The $100,000 putt is presented by MSP Plumbing, Heating, Air. Committed to your comfort since 1918.
Come on.
Jay Coles, 5 Eyewitness News.
How you doing, Ken?
I'm doing all right.
I'm excited about our guest, can you tell?
Are you an ICE agent? Are you a narc for ICE, Jay?
I told you, I'm a man without a political party. I'm a man without a law enforcement party.
We've got a great guest today.
We have a great guest. Yes, we do. Yep. Eric Odenius, right?
Yes.
Eric, 24 years, an ICE officer. How would we describe it? ICE agent? How do you guys describe the
man and boy? Well, I got hired back when it was the Immigration and Naturalization Service.
Back when it was INS, yeah.
And I was hired to be what they call a detention enforcement officer, but it's really just a fancy name for a U.S. Marshal for immigration. You drive the people around.
Yeah, so we'll go with ICE officer.
ICE officer.
ICE
That's
agent.
a good one because I had 5 different job titles in 24 years.
Yeah,
so.
24 years right here in St. Paul. So he worked here and
the whole time.
Probably would know some of the guys out on the street in the field today, I would assume, right?
Well, a lot of them look to be detailed in, but the ones who are still here at Fort Snelling, yes, I do know quite a few of them.
And you also mentioned that you wanted to tell folks that you're about to become a paralegal and you're not trying to offer up any kind of legal opinion or legal advice today, correct?
Yeah, if anybody from the bar is listening, I'm a paralegal student at Inver Hills. My anticipated graduation date is May 2026. Nothing I say should be construed as legal advice. I'm a paralegal, not a lawyer. And also, I'm a retired officer, so obviously nothing I say should be construed as the agency's viewpoint, the viewpoint of Inver Hills, the viewpoint of anybody else but me.
This is huge. It's huge that you're going to talk to us, so thank you.
Eric, what did you do in law enforcement before you started with INS and then ICE?
Well, I was in the National Guard for 8 years with the Minnesota 125th Field Artillery, actually. I was a student at Gustavus Adolphus from 90 to 94, graduated cum laude. Bounced around for about 3 years. I was out in Seattle, Washington. Actually, I was working the catalog order desk at Eddie Bauer, taking inbound calls. And I just put
and then you end up at ICE.
I know. Well, the thing is, I put in for a federal job in February out in Seattle, and I didn't realize that there were 2 agencies hiring like gangbusters. One was the Department of Agriculture, because there had just been a huge E. coli scare, and Congress said, we want 10,000 food inspectors right now in Ames, Iowa. And the other agency was the Immigration and Naturalization Service, because Congress had just passed the last major Immigration Reform Act, and they had hired all these GS-12, big money people to do all these investigations and stuff like that. But they realized that they had not hired anybody to actually move the people from place to place.
Enforce stuff.
So I actually do the movement. So they said, oh, no, we need 10,000 van drivers right away. And by the way, they've all got to have 4-year degrees or 4 years of law enforcement experience. But I have my 4-year degree, so I put in, I got hired. And all of a sudden in September, I'm at our old leased space just south of the airport at 2901 Metro before we moved to Whipple.
Was there any law enforcement training, tactical type of stuff that all police officers get when they go to the academy?
Yeah, for the detention enforcement officer, I went down to Glencoe, Georgia for 8 weeks, which is where most federal agencies do their training. 8 weeks, you get constitutional law, then some immigration-specific law, firearms trainings, defensive tactics, stuff like that, and then you get 1 week of conversational Spanish, which is enough to say turn left, turn right, have a seat, whatever. But every time our agency reinvented itself, every couple of years, like after September 2001, and also in about 2008, and I think there was another surge in about 2016, they would reclassify us, give us more authority, give us a promotion, and say, okay, well, because they'd say, look, we got all these trained and vetted van drivers. Why not they've probably been listening. Why not make some of them immigration agents? And then 2008, why not make them deportation officers? And so I just kind of rose up the ranks like that. And
I think it's important to point out, Kenny, for clarification, you weren't ever part of the fugitive task force that we see the most of right now.
Yeah, what you're seeing is our dedicated fugitive teams. Now, while I did on occasion go out and support their mission, there are other roles you can have in the district office, and I think we discussed it. I had there are probably 4 or 5 significant jobs you can have that aren't on the fugitive team. I was in all 4 or 5 of those, and I was only collaterally supporting the fugitive team if they had a big project.
Yeah, because you were still out in the field along with some of these arrests, and you had to go to court and testify. You did everything short of what the fugitive team is, and we see mostly the fugitive guys, right now?
That is, from what I'm seeing, the bulk of it is fugitive operations, yes. So
the training is there on both sides for the guys who aren't on the fugitive team, and I'm assuming the fugitive team probably has a lot more training, right?
They get extra special training. Yeah. They have to qualify additionally and with more things and have to do more special things. So yes, they operate more or less autonomously. So they are kind of out on their own. But the reason why they do travel with at least a couple people is, generally speaking, at least one of them has to be a supervisor. Mm-hmm. So, they'll go with some number, but you never want to go with less than 4 or 5. You want good witnesses if something goes south or whatever. You can't know that. So they're not going to be just traveling singly. When I would go out to the jails and prisons to interview foreign borns, that could be just me or maybe somebody with me, because I'm in the jail. I'm in a secure environment. I can do my interviews, no problem. But if you're actually going out on the streets and you're doing stuff like that, that's not appropriate to go solo or with just one other person.
I mean, you've heard some of the criticisms, right? That who are these guys? They're not trained. What's your answer to the criticisms about the training and the level of expertise these guys have?
Well, they're trained and they have expertise. It's just that what a lot of people don't understand is there's many different parts to the Department of Homeland Security and ICE. There's Border Patrol, there's ICE, and there's Customs and Border Protection, and they look like they're in the same thing, but they're really not. The Border Patrol people go to Artesia, New Mexico for their training, and they're the only agency that trains in Artesia, right? So, and their training is more specific to the kind of cases you would see on the southern border, and moreover, they don't see the process once they pass the body to district. They serve the charging documents and all that. They send the body to district, but then they don't usually follow through to see what happened, go to the immigration judge, go to the asylum office, get the travel document, get the person back to where they're from safely, make decisions like that. If we have somebody that cannot be accepted or the judge restricts what country we can remove them to, so we have to consider them for release, there's a worksheet we have to do, there's an analysis we have to make, and all these things are things they don't usually see. So there is that.
What do you make of what we're seeing?
We talked about that too. I don't want to comment on anything specific until, the judicial branch has had a thing to pass on it. I'm sure the grand jury is talking a meeting about all this other stuff. You see stuff like this St. Paul Police. The judges are not going to Monday morning quarterback because that's not how the test is.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court reaffirmed as recently as last year that they're neither going to look at the very instant everything went south, and they're not going to Monday morning quarterback, but they're going to look at the totality of circumstances.
So you're talking about each instance that
every instance that you see, if it goes to federal litigation, if the estate sues or the people sue or there's a claim for some sort of claim, whatever it might happen to be, ultimately it comes down to the totality of the circumstances.
But I mean, when we see, here's the question I have when I watch some of this, for example.
Okay.
Without getting into a specific case, right? And
Sure.
we're going to show some exclusive video that we have of an arrest that's happening.
Okay.
You'll see protesters blocking an alleyway, and they lock arms.
Mm-hmm.
The ICE agents ask them to move. They don't move. They get asked to move again. They don't move. At some point, the ICE agents move in, physically move them. Mm-hmm. Throw them to the ground, throw them out of the way, push them away, pepper spray them. So many people have questions about that enforcement. The question is, can they even do that? And so I'm asking you to speak in more general terms rather than a specific case.
Sure.
When you see that,
I can talk about.
Yeah.
So in the statute, in the regulations, the Code of Federal Regulations, if you look in Title 8, which deals with the foreign nationals and nationality, there is a section in Section 287 of the Code of Federal Regulations, not the law specifically, but the CFR. And the CFR, I think it's 287.6, and it talks about when ICE officers may use non-deadly force and deadly force.
Got it.
And it actually is in there. It says, when this happens, you may use deadly force. When this happens, you may use non-deadly force.
Non-lethal, yeah.
And then the other thing that they teach you when you go to the academy is the lowest level is simply called officer presence, and that means you look the part, your uniform is like it should be. You're well groomed. You're presenting yourself well. You're establishing a presence and all that. That's the lowest level, and then it goes up from there to passive force, active control measures.
So when we see that,
force, right.
If they're blocking the alleyway or a street, under the law, they would be within their rights to move them out of the way.
Right. Yes, but they would, like I said, when something like that happens too, you have to be mentally prepared, or you should be prepared to say, when you had time to consider it all, if I went to court, can I truthfully say that this person was doing X and so I did this?
Right.
If you can,
Isn't
good.
it? It's peaceful protest versus violent protest, isn't not?
Correct.
Didn't we have a federal judge ruling coming late last week talking about this specific issue?
And that's interesting because I actually know Judge Menendez, who issued the order. Mm-hmm. When I did reentry prosecutions, she was part of the Federal Defender's Office. And so when I testified to probable cause or detention, she would cross-examine me to make sure that my agency had all the I's dotted and the T's crossed, because, the cases that the U.S. Attorney's Office would take, you're talking somebody who's reentered after deportation, which is itself a felony, and then usually they would take cases where the person had prior drug or gun convictions. Well, when you look at the federal sentencing guidelines and you stack it all up, most of those people are looking at something like a 57 to 70-month sentence in the Bureau of Prisons. That's a long time to lose your liberty, right? So I appreciate and respected the fact that she was aggressive, respectful, but that she was probing and that she knew where to probe and she knew what to look for. And so, I answered truthfully, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, and let the judge make the decision, because that's when you're on the witness stand, as long as you're not the target of the investigation, you just present the evidence. The correct thing is to always tell the truth. You don't have to volunteer anything, but always tell the truth and let the judge figure it out. You're not involved.
And we've heard so much about warrant or no warrant needed, correct?
Okay. And here again, you can look to the statutes, and here you can go to the law, actually. Section 287 of the Act talks about the duties and powers of immigration officers as it relates to foreign nationals. And it talks about authority to arrest without warrant. And there's also a section that talks about authority to arrest anyone without warrant, including a U.S. citizen, but the U.S. citizen has to have committed a felony cognizable as a federal felony in your presence or view.
Okay.
So if a U.S. citizen physically assaults the person next to you,
right,
who's federal officer, that is they are committing a federal felony.
And they don't need a
Anyone
warrant.
would recognize it, then they can make the warrantless arrest. with the understanding that within the requisite timeframes, they get called to U.S. Attorney's Office, submit the case for prosecution, and then if the case is taken, then the body is presented and put before the magistrate, and then the magistrate decides whether where to go from there.
What if they show up at your door? What if they come to your house? What if the agents show up at someone's house? Do they have to have a judicial warrant signed by a judge, or is it different for immigration purposes?
It is different for immigration purposes, and the thing is too. Now we're really going to get in. And I hope you'll bring me down if I kind of get in the tall weeds.
Kenny's good at that.
Good.
He'll let you get in the weeds.
Oh, believe me, I have a lot of questions.
Because now you're talking common law and police officers and authority and license and all the property rights and things like that. And there's a concept called curtilage, right? You have a house, it's got a front door, it probably has a mailbox, right? There's an expectation that people can come up to your door, knock on your door, remain for a given period of time, and leave.
Okay.
If a person can do that, if the postman can come up and deliver the mail, the Girl Scout cookie lady can come up and knock on your door, the police can knock on your door.
Okay.
Because this is a consensual encounter at this point, right?
However,
you don't have to, there is within the administrative thing, there is boundaries, right? The curtilage stops at the threshold of the door.
The door,
That's
right.
not you're not in the curtilage. Now,
so they wouldn't need a warrant up to that point.
Up to that point.
But to go into the house,
you need consent.
Or a warrant?
Or a warrant. Judicial warrant.
Got it.
An administrative warrant. Now, again, there's a concept called exigent circumstances.
Right. That means if it's a burning house and somebody's about to die, you don't have to get a warrant.
Or
right?
here's another example. You have an administrative warrant for somebody who was ordered removed from the United States. You've seen their picture. You know what they look like.
Yeah.
They open the door. It's that specific person.
Then you can grab them.
Then you can reach across the threshold, make the grab, make the arrest. But when you document it, you say the exigent circumstance to break the plane and enter the threshold was that was my target. And he was right in front of me. So
Got it.
I have permission to do that.
So even if an ICE agent, because I think we need to explain to the listener, this is another source of confusion.
I'm sure it is.
These are, they would still need a warrant to go into the house. We've established that, unless they get permission.
Consent.
Right, or permission.
But consent can be limited. Say you have permission to come here, but just here.
Right, like in the foyer.
Right, in the foyer. You can come into the foyer.
Understood.
And you can talk. Right.
But this is not a criminal. You've explained to me.
Right.
This is handled administratively, not criminally. I got so confused as a reporter.
I know.
If I'm hearing from one side, if they're here illegally, it's a crime. Then I hear from the other side, oh, but it's not criminal.
Yep.
It's administrative.
It exists in both worlds, but that's where you have to. That's where you have the training, right?
Yeah.
It is in the statute that it is illegal to enter the United States. It is rarely prosecuted in the District of Minnesota because it's a misdemeanor. It's not.
So, but it's a crime.
But it is a crime.
Okay. But a misdemeanor crime.
But a misdemeanor crime. If you had no other prior criminal history and it's your first entry, yada, 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 right? There's a provision for other stuff, but we won't get into that. So then there's that. But there's also the administrative charge of being present in the United States without having been inspected. And the difference is the burden of proof, right? Because when you were going to school and you were watching Law and Order episodes and all that other stuff, they told you about reasonable doubt.
Yep.
Reasonable doubt, reasonable doubt, reasonable doubt. In immigration, the standard is clear, convincing, and unequivocal, which is somewhere between preponderance of evidence, which is 51%.
Which is a civil
matter,
yep.
Right? And which is considered civil immigration, and the reasonable doubt standard.
Got it.
And again, please talk me off the ledge if I'm getting in the tall weeds here.
No, this is important to know. It really is.
But the standard that the courts look at is under the Fourth Amendment, where it talks about reasonable searches and seizures, right?
Yep.
Now, here's where the tall weeds part might come in. If you are a prisoner and you are convicted, you're in prison or something like that, right? The standard for you is Eighth Amendment. It's cruel and unusual punishment. But if you are in any form of an immigration administrative proceeding, and you are not in the criminal process, you are treated as the arrest has to be reasonable. So every immigration arrest that an immigration officer has to make on an administrative basis must be reasonable.
Got it.
And that's what the court will look at.
This is super helpful, and I hope people are paying close attention because these are a lot of the arguments coming from both sides, and you never can figure out which one is accurate. The next question I had from the administrative part of this, I guess, even though it can be criminal, you hear a lot of this. There's no due process. They're just snatching people without due process. My question is this, Eric.
Yes.
Has there already been due process? By that I mean, has most of these people most likely gone through the immigration process and an immigration judge has ordered their arrest or ordered them to be detained because they've already had their court hearing?
For some of them, yes, that may very well be the case. There are certain others that are going through what's called habeas corpus proceedings right now where we're not quite sure. A lot of the immigration private bar attorneys are now taking some of these refugee cases to court to ask the judge to see if these detentions are reasonable. Because it's something they haven't seen before, and we are all not, the bar is not, I again, paralegal, not a lawyer, but the lawyers believe that the law does not support that kind of arrest, and it'll be up to the judges to decide. Make those decisions. But in some cases, the judges have already said, no, the arrest is
warranted. There's a deportation
Sometimes
order.
Warranted,
yeah.
But in the refugee cases that are now also taking place, some of those cases have already come back. No, the detention is not reasonable. I order the person released. And then
So when we hear these complaints about no due process.
No. Well, here's the thing. Due process, it's funny you should mention that, because the first case they take you through, when you go to, not the first time I went to for training, but when I came back in 2004 for immigration enforcement agent training, and they're teaching about jurisdiction and who is a foreign national and who is a U.S. citizen. And the first case you talk about is from like 1892, and it's about a Japanese female who came in on a steamship, and the inspector did not believe she was here for the purpose that she stated.
Okay.
And it was reviewed by the Supreme Court on habeas corpus. And the decision by the court was that every foreign national who is at least seeking admission to the United States, so you got to be physically present, right? You got to be on the threshold, knocking to come in. As long as you're at that standard, you're going to get some kind of due process. The amount of due process you get will vary depending
on the case,
the ties that you get. So like a permanent resident, for instance, somebody with a green card has the most due process rights. No immigration officer can order a lawful permanent resident removed, though all those cases have to go to the immigration judge.
Got it.
But as the person has fewer and fewer ties and connections to the United States in terms of how much time they've been here, there is due process in every case, but it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And to the court's thinking, this is only rational, right? Because when you look at the scheme of international law, the law of nations and things like that, every country can decide for itself who it wants to admit. If you could not choose who could cross your borders, you would not be sovereign, right? So the states, right, they can't control who moves across them, so they're not sovereign in that sense. But if you are a country that can control and permit the entry or exit of foreigners, as you see, that's what makes you sovereign. And so that's one of the tests. So every country is like this. And when I go overseas on travel, I'm the foreign national.
Right.
I have to abide by what they say, and if I don't, I'll get shipped out too, one way or the other.
So you're pretty confident most of these, there is due process. When we're hearing this argument that they're being snatched without due process, it's not as simple as just...
It's nowhere near as simple as that.
It could already be a judge's order.
There could be.
Yeah, so...
Or an agency or something like that.
Yeah.
Or we don't know.
We don't know, right.
And that's why I hate to see everything ratcheted up like this. And Minnesota being the focus of all this, whatever, I would just hope that cooler heads. I've been hoping for the last 3 weeks that cooler heads will prevail, but my phone's blowing up. I talked to a a radio station from Europe yesterday. I talked to a correspondent from some.
Everybody's been tracking you down.
Yeah, they're getting my name from the private bar, and then they're calling me.
Are you getting paid for any of this?
I will. Believe me, my educational fund could use it, but I'm getting enough.
Jay, write him a check.
I think we ought to. Yeah. Channel 5 helped me track him down. So.
Well, speaking of Channel 5, I wanted to bring something up I'm reading from the website, and it goes back to protesting and the difference between peaceful and violent protesters, and I alluded to it briefly. This federal judge, you're telling me it's Catherine Mendez. She ruled late Friday. Federal agents conducting immigration operations in the metro cannot detain or tear gas peaceful protesters.
Right.
Also saying the agents cannot arrest, detain, or retaliate against peaceful protesters, including those observing. They can't pepper spray or use other non-lethal munitions against them. They cannot stop or detain drivers or passengers in vehicles with no reasonable suspicion that they're obstructing agents, including people following them at a appropriate distance. There's some words in there. Appropriate distance, that caught my eye, and peaceful protesters, that caught my eye.
Yep.
And we're seeing what we've been calling on Garage Logic, very bad optics regarding ICE and their actions, and then their lack of, or their slow response to why they did what they did. Witness the Hmong guy in St. Paul. Well, we found out days later they were there because they were looking for a couple of really dangerous guys that were reported to be living in the residence.
I know a little about that from an attorney who might or might not be working an angle of the case, so yeah, I'd rather
you can't comment. But my point here is they could control, it's obvious that, in my opinion, that some of the press is out to get them. And I think they could control their image better if they were a whole lot more graceful in the way they do their job, and it's more timely in their response. And
that was why I was always trying to be careful, because the last thing you want is a bad precedent. And we had an issue like that, I remember, in the early 2000s, where we had a provision in the law where we could take people who had previously been removed and just reinstate the prior judge's order of removal and remove them again. Because it doesn't make sense to keep sending a person to the judge, every couple of weeks like that, right?
Right.
Well, in the Ninth Circuit, which is the area out in which some of your listeners may, it's kind of, sometimes they're a little controversial out there on the West Coast. They kind of think they're their own little Supreme Court or whatever. But they had a circuit rule that because it was sometimes used injudiciously over there, that they couldn't do that. And the Supreme Court eventually fixed the circuit split around 2009, 2010, I think. But when I got detailed to Phoenix for 45 days in 2005, and I was a brand spanking new immigration enforcement agent, I was doing cases, and I was like, this guy's been removed 5 times in the last 6 months, so I just reinstate? And they're like, nope, you got to send him back to the immigration judge. Really? Okay. So, yeah, the reason to be judicious about what you do and things like that is that you do get a reputation over time. Believe me, word gets out, word gets around, you're known, and you don't want a bad precedent that interferes with your operations. But you know what? You keep, I think the phrase is play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's been said a few times lately. Yeah.
They say that on cops, but it can be applicable in the law enforcement realm too. You got to be mindful that you're not operating in a vacuum out there, and other people are looking at what you do and you've just got to mind your P's and Q's. If people realize, I worked for these private bar attorneys for years on the other side, so to speak. But we all respected and understood. I mean, we were, because, of how many hours I worked, we were all living together anyway, almost, right? So, but as long as there was mutual respect on both sides, we could deal with that. As long as we were being honest with each other and said, hey, I can't do anything. I don't have jurisdiction. I know what you're saying and I know what you're trying to do, but you need to go here. You need to go to the federal court. You need to go to the field office director or the immigration judge. your case is sympathetic, but I can't do it. And so as long as they understood that, it was okay.
And to Kenny's point, what Menendez ruled was interesting. What is a reasonable? What was it? The reasonable distance, or
as for following them, hold on, let me find the direct quote.
I think it's reasonable, appropriate, or something. Appropriate distance.
Yeah, that sounds very judicial right there.
Yeah.
Reasonable and appropriate.
Following at an appropriate distance.
Appropriate. Who determines what's
define that?
Define appropriate.
Well, and that's the thing. The district court's going to do that when it comes time for somebody to apply that test. They're going to look at reasonable. They're going to look at other similar cases and stuff like that, and they're going to say what a reasonable person would do. But that is the standard. And also, again, there's that word again from the Fourth Amendment that I was talking about, right? Reasonable.
Reasonable. Yeah.
She's applying a Fourth Amendment standard that everything should be reasonable. It should be out there already. But now that she's felt she's had to put it out there, that tells you something. So,
Jay, let's do the video.
I was just going to, that's where I was going to pivot to the video.
Let's define exclusive before we play the video.
Well,
what do you mean by exclusive?
Definitely exclusive to news from the CRABBY coffee shop, because a source of mine, law enforcement source, gave me the video.
Okay.
And it's surveillance video taken at the St. Paul Police Department.
Okay.
And nobody else has it.
Okay.
Except us. And it was sent to me because I'd been asking a lot of the questions we're asking Eric. Why does it take 6, 8, 9, 10 ICE agents to arrest one guy, right? Maybe one guy who's not armed and doesn't appear to be dangerous. So I got this video sent to me, and it's outside the St. Paul Police Station, and I can set it up this way so that you understand what you're looking at. ICE is pursuing someone to arrest, don't know for what, and that person pulls up to the backside of the St. Paul Police Department and tries to get into the police department, and ICE does its thing. Now, I want to also be clear, St. Paul Police did not assist in this arrest. This just happens to be at the St. Paul Police Department, and I wouldn't doubt the guy might have drove to the St. Paul Police Department hoping to get some help from St. Paul PD.
I have a shocking bombshell about this. But I want everybody to watch it first, and then I'll drop this big bomb on you, Jay.
Okay.
So here it is.
So this is the guy pulling up. That's the suspect's vehicle. The cars behind him are ICE vehicles, as you'll see. These are now ICE agents getting out.
He runs to the back door, up the steps.
Can't get in. They start to arrest him. Now look at the other ICE agents showing up. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And they also arrest a woman in the top right-hand corner.
Meanwhile, he didn't put the car in park, so the car kept going down the alley, across the street, and possibly into a couple of trees. The lady got out and ran, but it looked like she got behind some obstacles and she might have fallen down on the ice.
Yes, and so they arrest her, and as you can see, the video ends there. And again, what I liked about this video, and I was glad it was shared with us, it's away from the protesters. It's a clean arrest in terms of he doesn't put up a fight other than he's trying to get in the door. And they arrest him, and that was the end of it. But it was something, Kenny, that I thought we should play because when you see it apart from when arrests are happening at the protests, it gives you a real clean idea of how most of these arrests are occurring. This is how most of them are being carried out. And we only get the snippets when it's happening at the protests.
Let's watch it again.
Yeah, let's
Chris,
watch it again.
Replay it one more time.
So this is outside St. Paul Police Headquarters, but they're not involved. There's the suspect's car. ICE is in pursuit.
The suspect jumps out, runs to some steps, goes up to the back door. Okay,
white T-shirt, knocking on the door.
2 agents so far. Another car. Third agent. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think that's 10. 10. Okay, so we had 10 agents, and there's the car rolling across the street, which could have been dangerous, but nothing happened, thank goodness. Okay, can I drop my bomb?
Yeah.
Let's cut the video.
Out? What do you got?
Here's the bomb I'm going to drop on you. No big deal.
Right.
No big deal.
That's not even a bomb.
Eric, as part of my duties at Hubbard, I'm a traffic reporter, and I listen to State Patrol Scanner, and I watch the cameras, the streaming cameras, and I've watched many police chases that end, and some of them have ended violently. But this was, you asked me, a run-of-the-mill arrest. Can you see anything wrong with what happened here?
Well, again, we don't know. I'm actually wondering about the female there and what her
role
was. But I'm sure they decided the best thing was to clear the scene and figure it out later. But
this is an old trick that I've learned a long time ago. When the driver of a car you're riding in is pulled over and arrested, just enforce the case that he's the guilty party. He got weed. Search that guy. It's like when you're being chased by a grizzly bear. Push down your best friend. Let them get in.
And I'm glad you dropped that bombshell, Kenny, because to my point, so many questions I've received from people is why does it take 8, 9, or 10 of these guys?
Well, I have a simple answer to that, and it's only a theory. I don't think it's fact. I think because now the local police departments cannot provide crowd protection or whatever, or they're being asked not to. I think that they're just overstaffing each incident in order to protect themselves from the possibility of violent protests.
And that could very well be. And what I thought also, it gave you a nice that's a good clear shot of how most of these arrests are going down.
Yeah.
We have the images just where the arrests are happening with the protesters.
Right.
There's been over 3,000 arrests, and most are happening like that.
Right.
And I asked Eric, Eric, you could have 8, 9, 10 guys chasing him, because we don't know how bad that guy is, right? He could be a really bad guy for all we know, right?
Well, and like I said, if it goes to litigation, that's absolutely going to come out, and then and that will all be balanced against the reasonableness, and that's the standard that they'll be looking at.
Jay, the morning after the Good shooting, that would have been a Thursday morning.
Yeah.
There was a protest going on at the Whipple building, which is down by the airport, Highway 62, Fort Snelling, that area, Hiawatha. Just across the Mendota, there was an ICE arrest happening on Highway 62. And it was so boring that I tuned it out. I was more interested in the crash in St. Paul than I was this very boring police arrest.
100%, Kenny. It's so critical.
And I'm not trying to defend anybody here. No. I'm not trying to give my opinion other than, every case is different, I guess.
Every case is different.
Every case is different.
And I like the fact that this one involved no protesters. You could cleanly see how arrests are carried out. And to your point, Kenny, pretty routine arrest.
Yeah.
Nothing spectacular about it.
It would have been more interesting if one of them slipped on the ice, because that's the kind of nonsense that goes viral.
And here's the other thing, too. I said to Eric, what if he had gotten in that door? Now what happens, right?
There you go. The speculation on this video is fun.
Right? Because it's speculation, because St. Paul Police have been ordered not to assist in arrests. They can assist with crowd control, but not in arrests.
I can speculate here.
Yeah.
If he would have come in hot like he did with no explanation, and by the way, the front and back doors are locked, so you can't come in hot.
Yeah.
But if for some reason he had come in hot, he would have been bounced on right away.
Probably.
And hands behind the back, and now what's going on here, pal?
Yeah.
And then the room would have been flooded with ICE agents. It would have been a catastrophe.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That was a Sunday afternoon. That was last Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
Now, had he gone to the front door Sunday afternoon, it might have been locked. During the business hours, you can get into the front foyer, and there's a cop sitting behind the glass.
Yeah.
And it could have been a whole mess had he gotten inside.
Right.
But I was thankful to get the video, because I said to my source, this to me shows what, and Eric, you correct me if I'm wrong, this shows you what probably 95% of the arrests look like out there. Am I wrong? 90%?
Probably. You hope they're routine. Like at the end of the day, you just want to go home safe, right?
But we just see the chaotic ones,
right? Yeah,
with the protest, with the coverage, and that's generally what you see. Kenny is what we just witnessed.
Here's a question for both of you. I'm speculating again, which gets us nowhere, but I have to do it. If in fact he would have got into the front secure lobby, is that Switzerland? Is he safe then, given that the police are told not to assist ICE?
I think,
or could they go in there and grab him and pull him out?
Again, without knowing for sure, I'm pretty sure they could. If he was in that public area of the foyer right there, ICE could have continued in and continued the arrest. The question would become, would have any of the St. Paul police officers been able to assist in the arrest?
Yeah.
Because they've been ordered not to. So I don't know how that works.
I can hear all those St. Paul cops muttering under their breath, "Oh, now what?"
Right.
GFC.
Well, the thing is, right. Well, let's change a fact. It changes the whole thing. That's the interesting thing about the law. It's like, well, you read about a case and it's like, well, that's what they did. But let's just change one fact. Well, then you can't really predict it because it changes the whole tenor of the case.
Yeah, I mean,
the whole thing.
I mean, I guess. For us, I'm glad he did not get into that building because it could have been
saved a lot of knotty jurisdictional issues.
Yes,
we'll just say
yes. Not to mention the politics of.
I was telling you about the difference between a Fourth Amendment and Eighth Amendment arrest, and I remember I was because I am such a law nerd.
And so, for those who don't know, Fourth Amendment's unlawful search and seizure,
right? And Eighth Amendment is cruel and unusual.
You have unusual punishment.
So when you're convicted of an offense, the conditions of custody are evaluated under the Eighth Amendment standard, and when you're not, anything other than that, you're the Fourth. But what if you had a case that the Eighth Circuit had where the guy had an unexecuted 2-year sentence hanging over his head, but was still in pretrial confinement and for something else? He was in the squad car going to the police station. The squad car had to respond to a robbery in progress thing at the bank. It went through this parking lot with all these speed bumps, and the guys in the back with the handcuffs bouncing all over the place, getting injured from the riot. And right, and the only thing Eighth Circuit wants to know is, who is this, Fourth Amendment or Eighth Amendment?
Yeah.
What standard are we looking at?
Yeah. Well, it would have been interesting.
You would think there were like 5,000 other questions to ask, but they're the appellate court, and they're just looking for error. And they're like, we get all the other stuff that happened, but the really important thing is, did the injury happen under a Fourth Amendment standard or an Eighth Amendment standard?
Well, I'm glad we showed the video. I'm glad you could talk about it because there are people who will see that and say there is no need for ICE to have 8, 9, 10 guys there, right? And it's very important to point out we don't know that.
Yeah.
We don't know. And the other thing is, like I said, it's been so crazy the last 3 weeks. They probably do feel they have to have a
like
few
Kenny
extra
said,
people.
extra body.
Kenny's point was right on target. I think that's a large part of it. If they know now or are concerned that they're not going to get backup from the local authorities, then it would be foolish not to bring
for that many
extra people just in case, because now you may not have that backup, and it's dangerous on those streets out there. You were out there. I was out there. I wasn't doing it at the level they were doing at, but when I did go out, it's a pretty intimidating feeling out there. You can be in the agency a long time and still have that feeling every time you go out there. But those spidey senses are what keep you safe, right? Because it's like, you know what? Maybe we come back to this house a different day. Maybe we come back a different time. Maybe we just back off
depending on who it is,
right? But maybe you don't have that luxury. Maybe it's like, gun and trafficking charges and stuff like that. And this may be our only opportunity. We don't want this guy vamoosing, so sometimes.
I have more questions, Jay. Let's pause for 3 seconds in case we have an ad insertion, and then we'll ask the question.
Good.
Who doesn't love this time of year? Football playoffs are here, and Underdog is the best place to get in on all the action. Underdog is so easy. You just pick if your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like touchdowns, rushing yards, receptions, and more. If you get your picks right, you could win up to 5,000 times your cash. So many great players to choose from this time of season, but the way I look at it, I think Matthew Stafford to go higher on yards passing is always a good way for me to go, and Saquon Barkley's a nice pick to go higher on rushing yards. So what are you waiting for? Download the app today and use promo code GARAGE to score $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code GARAGE. Underdog. Make picks. Win money.
Must be 18 plus. 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska. 19 plus in Colorado for some games. 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
Okay. Eric, have you Did you happen to see the Brooklyn Park Police Chief? His name is Mark Bruley. Did you happen to see his presser last night?
I didn't, but I did see the police chief from Apple Valley. My wife showed me a text from the police chief of Apple Valley, and he gave a very nice, measured statement about the issue and things people could do about it constructively.
Evidently, Bruley, and I'm just going to paraphrase what happened, he was commenting on ICE tactics and how they, in fact, have pulled over a couple of off-duty Brooklyn Park police officers. One was a female, and they were giving her, my words, the business, not physical, but, intimidating. And then she finally identified herself as a off-duty police officer, and they left. And that's basically what the presser was about last night with Chief Bruley.
Right. Well, I mean, she needs to address that upper chain of command, and if there needs to be some department to department talking, that's the obvious first step. And if she doesn't get the satisfaction, there are other channels she can go off of. But, the important thing, and, for the officers too, if you find yourself in that situation, wrong target, whatever, you should be writing up a memo to relate that and say what your basis was. Because the thing is, again, when these cases go to litigation, it's not going to happen instantly. They take time. You're going to find situations where, like, it might be a year or 18 months, and you get subpoenaed. You have to come into the grand jury, or you have to go to the judge in a suppression hearing, and you have to remember about what happened 12 months or 18 months ago. Good luck with that. So what prudent officers will do sometimes is you write your memo for the date, right? Or you can do things like you write down your recollections and you mail it to yourself. If you're really concerned, that's probably one thing you can do constructively, right? Because then you have a contemporaneous recollection of what you did. But important thing is dialogue.
The chiefs were. I watched that presser, Kenny. They were alluding to racial profiling.
That's what I was going to bring up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was for lack of a better term, person of color. God, I hate that phrase.
I do too. But she's most likely black
or Mexican or something along those lines, right?
But it's, again, conflicting information. One side says, the Supreme Court says in immigration cases racial profiling is okay. Others, legal people, say no, that racial profiling does not apply in immigration cases. Eric,
it's not racial profiling.
What is it?
It's again, there's a 19. Oh God, I'm such a law nerd. Again,
it's okay. We need one today. That's why you're here.
Okay.
Yeah, we're trying to understand all this.
You're looking for a
Kenny
law
and I
nerd.
don't know anything about this.
No.
Okay.
I know how to blame my friends for my actions.
Roughly around 1976 case, there was a case called Bergoni Ponce versus United States. And that case, and if it seems like it comes right to recollection, I actually cited it in one of my paralegal classes a couple weeks ago.
Good, so you're perfect for this. So can we racially profile in immigration cases?
No, you cannot do that.
Cannot do it.
You must have.
See?
You must have more than one articulable fact. Now, can ethnicity be one of those factors?
Okay.
Sure. But let me tell you a true story that happened to me when I was on detail in El Paso. This story is like almost 20 years old. So in 2008, I get detailed down to El Paso to help him out for 45 days.
Okay.
Let me tell you, El Paso is just, and I can say this too because I was actually born there.
Okay.
So it's pretty dusty, right? There's not a lot going on. Juarez is where all the action's at. Juarez has got like 1.5 million people, and El Paso has 300,000.
And they're right across from each other.
It's the size of Omaha. Yeah, they're right across from each other. So after about halfway through this detail, I've just got to go out for some R&R, and I don't want to be crossing the border to Mexico for an R&R. But there's a casino in Mescalero, New Mexico, about 2 hours drive north. So one of the other detail officers and I, we get in the car and we drive up, and we while we're as we cross into New Mexico, we actually hit a border patrol checkpoint because they have checkpoints on the highways, right? And the border patrol guy looks at us. I mean, we are, the whitest Minnesotans, right? And he says, "You're American, aren't you?" Now, I just want to get out of El Paso, get to Mescalero, and do something other than deal with my job.
Yeah.
So I don't have time to lecture the Border Patrol officer that he's doing it wrong. But because that's not how you should ask that question.
Okay, that's what I want to ask you.
Because
what can you do?
The problem is that when you say you're American, aren't you? A person could not. Or they could say, oh, shoot, I'm from Central America. Yeah, I'm American.
Yeah.
Or they're Canadian.
Right. That's North America.
They're American,
yeah.
right? The correct way to say it is, of what country are you a citizen or national of? Now, when I ask you that question, that makes you think, right? It's like, God, the words are all twisted around. Of what country are you a citizen or national of? And what the heck is a national? Well, a national is somebody from American Samoa, but we won't get into that for now. But anyway, so yeah, of what country are you a citizen? It makes you think, and then you say, oh, I'm a United States citizen, right? Or, but it makes you think. And and when they have to think it and say that, you can pick up on accents. You can pick up on other things. And as you're you start from the consensual encounter, right? And you continue to articulate, you're asking questions that, So
I hate to interrupt you, but it sounds like if you're going to go off accent and how they're responding.
Yep.
Well, then would color of skin then matter too?
At some point. But again, when the Border Patrol guy, and when you ask a question like that, you're only ever going to get your probable cause for persons of a certain ethnicity and type.
Correct.
But you know what? The universe is larger than that.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to lecture is like, you're never going to find an illegal Canadian asking a question like that. But there are a lot of illegal Canadians in the United States. People don't know they're out there, right?
We're surrounded by them.
If you
They're
saw
everywhere,
Canadian bacon,
like Martians.
They walk among us, right?
Yeah,
they're all over the place,
They're
right?
disguised, yeah.
We have a full-service Canadian consul.
Disguised like a guy from Ely?
Yeah,
right.
Guy from
it looks like he's from Rochester.
So circling back to Burgoni Ponce, right?
Yeah.
You get this whole thing. The problem with Burgoni Ponce, the reason it came up is the Border Patrol was kind of at the time looking for a certain kind of person.
So if there's a Mexican guy, we're going to go because chances are
right. And the Supreme Court's like, no,
you can't do it. Good.
You are establishing two things when you are a Border Patrol, ICE, CBP, whatever. And this is why you're asking two specific questions. I already told you one of them, right?
Yeah.
What country are you a citizen or national?
What's the next one?
Alienage. And the next one is, how did you enter the United States?
Got it.
But you're only reaching question 2, right? If question 1 comes back, I'm from somewhere else, right?
Got it.
Because they're a U.S. citizen.
Yeah.
You don't care how they enter the United States. It's not your jurisdiction. You don't care.
I'm so glad you referenced the Supreme Court decision that clarifies this for me, because I've watched different news reports where I have seen it reported that in immigration cases you can racially profile.
No.
And then I've seen other stories say you can't. Well, it sounded ridiculous to me.
I know. But Burgoni Ponce specifically talks about it, because it talks about in the context of Border Patrol arrests.
Yeah.
In whatever. I can't.
So did you get out and tell him all that?
Yeah.
Did you tell that guy that? Or did you go?
I was on my way to Mescalero. I didn't care. I needed the
You need to go lose some money.
I didn't have time to give him a remedial crash course in establishing alien deportability.
This has been like a crash course in what all the questions I wanted answered about what's going on here.
Yeah.
And you've answered all of them.
Wow. Okay.
Well,
great.
you have.
That's awesome.
You've done a great job. And I know you were worried about getting into the weeds, but you know what? As something as complex as this, if you don't bother to get in the weeds a little bit, you're never going to understand it.
I get that.
And you're never going to be arguing.
I'm trying to keep it at the.
You did. Very base. Kenny and I, Reavers were all like going, okay, I get it now.
Fantastic.
I get it. One more question I've got.
Please.
You were around from 97 to 2021 with ICE.
Right.
So Clinton deported, I don't know, 10, 12 million.
Well, the whole reason I got hired was that act was
for
trying to
the Democrat
aggressively remove persons, right? Because they tightened everything up.
In the 90s. Immigration started to become a really big deal in the 90s under Clinton. Yep. Then it continued through Bush.
Yeah, the September 2001 attacks and then
it continued with Obama.
2008.
And then Biden, right? And so
nothing major is. The problem is nothing major has come really down since 97, but
in terms of deportations,
we were still doing it. We were always doing our business. Right. When I was there, you're always working the prisons and jails. You know, we'd have pickups for everybody we're picking up out of the prison system.
So this is my question then.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Why? In Clinton, according to the numbers I saw this morning, I read it somewhere, around 12 million were deported. under his 8 years. Why now are we having all of these clashes, all of these protests, right?
You're asking a question we all know the answer to.
Is it simply because it's Trump and the way Trump has approached it?
Let's let Eric answer it.
What do you think? Why? So if all this was going on as I was a news reporter downstairs in the newsroom from 92 to 2025, we didn't. What's changed? Why now all this craziness?
Well, whenever you do have a new administration, and again, because remember, I was in 5 different administrations.
Yeah, so you've seen it. So why now?
The first 6 months to a year, right? Yeah. The new people come in and they look at the statute book and they say, wow, that's neat. Let's do that. And then they hand the policy to us, and because we're charged with enforcing, Congress sets the law.
Yeah.
The executive kind of gets to nibble around the edges of it. But, you look at the Constitution, right? And the Constitution specifically gives the power to regulate foreign nationals to Congress, right? And the executive gets to nibble around it, but they get frustrated. Obama, Biden, you can see it in some of these policies. They're like, why aren't we doing it? Some case will come out or some issue will hit and do it. It's just that this particular time, it's kind of cranked up to like 1,000, right?
So it's just on steroids. We're
it's
just
on steroids.
We're more vocal about it. We okay.
Well, it was
that's one part of it. The other part of it is kind of political science.
It's politics.
Okay. There you go.
And let me just lay that out as I saw it from my time at Gustavus, because I did major in political science and history, right? In the 90s, back in the bad old days of the Soviet Union, as that was going on, the American public was a lot more bell-curved, right? There was a large middle. There were people on the left and right, but, Democrats and Republicans were on each other's bowling teams and stuff like that in Congress, right? And there was a lot more interplay, right? Because it was all about the bad old Soviet Union. Well, as time has progressed, and again, this is just my opinion. I might be totally
I'm just
wrong
curious.
about it,
To me, it seems like...
But it looks to me like the country has gotten more divided, right?
Yeah, so...
You have now you have a big glop of people on the left and a big glop on the right. Not very many people in the middle. And those people on each side are like, well, if you don't 100% agree with what we say, you're anathema. Get out of here. We don't want to deal with you, right? There's no big tent anymore. So
that's what we talked about last week.
Did you talk about that last week?
Okay. Well, yeah, the fact that we're neighbors stuck in the middle of 2 neighbors on each side fighting with each other.
Yeah, there's a lot more squabble. There doesn't seem to be as much commonality of purpose, right?
Right.
Congress is just gridlocked. But a lot of this stuff could be taken care of if Congress would just address these issues. One thing that people don't understand about immigration but once I tell you this, you're never going to be able to unthink it. So, is that if you look at all the major immigration reforms, going all the way back to 1892, I told you about that one case. 1892, when were the big what's the commonality between all these years? 1924, 1952, 1972, 1984, 1996. They're all election years.
Well, I was just going to say
my goodness.
I was going to say some followed world wars, too. Which
they did, but they were
immigration boomed.
But they're also many of them are in response to election years. 1964, another notorious year, right? So all of these happen in election years because the only time that Congress gets together and listens to their constituents and says, "Oh, we need to do this," and something else that used to happen but didn't because of this division is that also after every major reform until 1996, Congress realized they'd probably screwed some stuff up. So about 4 years after each of these major changes, there would usually be some sort of technical corrections. So after the big amnesty in 1984, there was a Technical Corrections Act in 1990. After 1952, there was some technical corrections in 56. The point is that since 1996, with the minor exception of the whole DHS restructuring, INS, DHS, whatever, there hasn't really been any significant major change. So we're still operating under the same law as it was in 1997, only now it's had all its warts are showing after 28 years.
And I'll give you an example here. So Obama deported 6,000 people from Minnesota. Mm-hmm. That's what I've been, as I researched it. More than 6,000 in his 8 years.
All right. It sounds reasonable. I remember being about that.
It sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
I was a reporter here the whole time. I don't remember anyone saying anything about 6,000 people being deported during the Obama. I don't remember us covering it. I don't remember us going to the Whipple building. I don't remember us going to an immigration hearing. And all of a sudden, here we are in 2026.
And
everybody's losing their mind.
And my phone is ringing off the. I got the Catalan public radio calling me from the Iberian
But it's easy to define, Jay. It started with President Trump's first administration and the wall. And then it went to Biden, where all the stories were letting criminals in, right?
Yeah,
from China, from South America, from every country in the world, we're letting criminals. They're walking in with their luggage. And now Trump, second administration, he's coming back down on it. And whatever Trump does to the left, that's very evil. Whatever Biden does to the right is very evil. And now we're just stuck in a tennis match here.
It's just devolved into politics.
So even though these presidents on different sides of the aisles have done the same thing,
Well, I mean, Kenny, I've had people say, well, they weren't doing it the way they're doing it now. And I'm like, yeah, no, Eric.
They were, but the press wasn't there following them, and there wasn't protesting.
They did it the same. Yeah. They did it the same way. Well,
we got to wrap it up.
Oh, Eric, that's been great. That was great. Well, I know we got into a lot of good legal stuff, and you were worried about that, but people need to understand what's going on. And thank you.
And like I said, I don't mind talking about the legal stuff. You can understand why I have to back off on it.
No worries.
A legal professional. You have to be. You got to be careful, and we know more than anybody else that we give speech that's defamatory or inflammatory.
You helped us understand a lot.
Yep.
Thank you very much, Eric.
Thanks, Eric.
We're going to take a quick break. Yep. We'll be right back to say goodbye. Yep.
Okay.
Wow.
It was a lot, wasn't it?
Don't test me on anything he said, okay? Because like 80% is gone. It went right through. That was really good. Thank you, Jay.
Excellent, because I had a ton of questions answered, and now I can speak intelligently to other people about it.
Yeah.
Because I kept hearing all these polarizing things that I'm just like, I got to find a former ICE guy to talk about this.
Yeah.
Right? Let's clear
that was fun.
Yeah, it was good.
Another good one. Very informative. Thank you, Jay.
And the video's good. So.
And thank you to everybody for listening to another edition of News from the Krabby Coffee Shop. Special thanks, Chris Reavers, for running the show.
Mr. Reavers, thank you.
Chris.
You got it, boys. See you, Kenny.